Hello and welcome to my Ciao Land of the Rising Sun mini album tutorial series designed for scrap and create. If you would like to follow along with the tutorial series, check out the links in the description box below where you can purchase all the supplies that you will need to make this mini album. Let's get into the tutorial. In today's tutorial, we are going to be working on page 1. First, we're going to cut our cardstock pieces and score them, and then we will add them to the page. The first piece of cardstock measures 4.5 by 5 1/4. On the 4.5 inch side, we are going to score this at 1/2 inch on the right hand side. Then I have a piece that measures 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. On the 3 1/4 inch side, we're going to score this at 1/2 inch on the left hand side. Then I have a piece that measures 4.5 by 3 3/4. On the 3 3/4 inch side, we are going to score this at the top at 1/2 inch. This piece measures 4.5 by 5 3/4. On the 5 3/4 inch side, we'll score at 1/2 inch along the bottom. The next piece measures 4 1/4 by 4 3/4. I'm going to score along the 4 3/4 inch side at 1/2 inch on the bottom. Then I have a piece that measures 4 1/4 by 4 3/4. On the 4 1/4 inch side, score at 1/2 inch on the left side. And the final piece measures 2 inches by 4 3/4. On the 2 inch side, I'm going to score this at 1/2 inch on the left hand side. Now, once all of my pieces are scored, I'm going to take my scissors and miter the ends here on the 1/2 inch tab section of all of these pieces. Then I'm going to take my bone folder and fold back on these score lines and burnish those folds to make them nice and flat. Once I've done that to all of my pieces, I'm going to come back and then we will add these pieces to the page to build the page, and then we'll start decorating using the Ciao papers. Now, if you are new to mini album making and you don't own a bone folder, I definitely recommend that you go ahead and purchase one because it really does help to flatten out these folds. And the more you flatten these folds, the smoother your pages will be and the cleaner your album will look whenever it's done. So definitely something to invest in. We're going to assemble our page next, starting with our 4.5 by 5 1/4 inch flap. So I've cut them all in the order that I'm going to be placing them in. So if you've kept your pieces in order, we're going to start with the first piece. We're going to add our adhesive to the 1/2 inch tab section here on the back of the flap. And this piece is going to go on the right side of the page, right up against the edge of the page. Once I have that on, the top and bottom should also be straight with the page, and then I'll go ahead and burnish this down. Now I'm going to open up that flap that I just put on and take my next piece. I'll apply my adhesive to that 1/2 inch tab section here, and we're going to put this on the back side, on the left hand side, but it has to be to the right of that score line. If you put it too far over, it will not close properly because there will be too much paper in that score line. So you want to make sure that it closes before you go ahead and burnish this down. So there will be a slight space where that score line is. And then this is going to actually become a pocket. So when this is closed, this will actually be sticking out here. So you'll see one of our tags. Well, it'll be this direction. So you'll see that tag from the front of the page. But the pocket will actually be on that back side. I'm going to take my next piece here. I'll apply my adhesive to that 1/2 inch tab section. And this piece I'm going to place in the top left corner. I'm going to line that score line up with the top edge of my page. The left side will be lined up with the left edge of the page, and then I'm going to burnish this down. Then I'm going to take my next piece, apply my adhesive to my 1/2 inch tab here. And this one I'm going to apply down here to the bottom of the page. Now I'm going to line up those edges and make sure everything lines up first, and then adhere this down. And I will actually need to trim this piece a little bit. I forgot to check this before I put this on, but that's okay. Because the top piece and that score line, I'm going to trim a little tiny bit off of it so that the flap will close appropriately. So I'm going to bring my paper trimmer in here. Mine has this little wire edge on it that makes it really nice for cutting these little tiny cuts like this. If yours does not have one of these, draw a line on your paper and use your scissors to cut this. So I'm just going to be taking a little tiny bit off. It's like a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch, so maybe like a 1/16 of an inch. And the reason I did that is so that this will lay perfectly underneath here. Now I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this and this, when they're closed, everything does line up. And if it doesn't line up perfectly, you can go ahead and try to crease this a little bit differently. So now I have this and this. I'll take my next piece here, put my adhesive on my 1/2 inch tab section of this piece. And this one is going to go down here on the bottom of the one that we just put on. And I'm just going to eye this in center because it's just 1/4 of an inch smaller. So I'm just going to make sure that there's 1/8 of an inch on each side, making sure that it doesn't stick out past the edge of the flap. And then I'm going to adhere this down. Then I'm going to take my next piece and apply my adhesive here. And on this piece, I'm going to place this here in the center. You can use a centering ruler if you want to make sure that this is exact. I am also using the grid on my mat to help me with placing this. I'm going to place that edge on the edge of the page and burnish that down. And then I have this one that I'm going to place here as a tuck spot. So I'm going to apply my adhesive first to my 1/2 inch tab section and then apply this one right on top of here. Then I'll burnish this down with my bone folder. And eventually we'll turn that into a tuck spot after we have our decorative paper here. So this will be a flap. There'll be room for a 4x6 photo here. And then this will flip up, this will flip down, and this will flip closed. And then don't forget, we have our tags that we're going to be using. So this one will go into here like this, and that is the build for the page. So I'm going to next decorate the front of my page before I then go on and build up the back of the page. So next we're going to switch over to the Ciao papers. From this 8x8 paper, this is the one that inspired my page design. So I went ahead first and cut this at 4 1/4 inches. Then I'm using this piece here, and it measures 5 inches. That's going to be here for the front cover on this side over here. Now I'm going to be placing a magnet on here and on here, but I'm going to show you the measurements for these pieces first. This one measures 4 1/4 by 3 inches, and this one is 5 inches. So this one can go right on the front of here, and this one can go right on the front of here without any issues. Then we're going to come back and we'll add a magnet here, and we're actually going to have the magnet on the back of the tag so that when the tag is in the pocket, it's going to hold that flap closed. Now to place my magnet, I'm going to have it basically intersect where this edge is, but in the center of this piece here. Remember, my tag is going to go with the larger part of the eyelet facing the outside. So it's going to be on the upper corner here. And I want to make sure it's not too close to the edge here, but I don't want it to be too far down here because if you place a photo here, you don't want the magnet under the photo. Then I'm going to place my tag in my pocket so that it is centered. I'm going to add my second magnet on top of this one. I'm going to hold this in place and then press this down here. So that is where my magnet will be for my second piece, and it is from the center about 1 5/8, and from the center to the bottom about 1 3/8. And then I'm going to take this paper here and cover my magnet on that flap. Now I'm starting with this 12 by 12 paper. It looks like this on the back side. Now the first thing I did was I cut across the top. This is 5 inches, so cut one 12-inch by 5-inch strip across the top. Then I've cut one piece to 7 inches, and this piece is going to lay here on the base of my page. The next piece is cut to 2.5 inches by 5 inches, and I'm going to place this here, but I'm going to be placing it on this side. And then here I've got the next piece. It measures 1 1/4 inches by 5 inches. I'm going to be placing this one here, and then I'm going to make this my pocket for my tag that's going to hold that page closed. So I'm going to show you how to make these in case you are new to making a mini album and you've never done this before. You'll see how I do this for future pages. I won't do this on camera unless there's something special about the way that I do it. Once I have my paper on, I'm going to just take my adhesive and apply a thin line across the top and across the bottom of my pocket. And then I'm going to close this and use my bone folder to burnish this down. Now with this one, because I have my tag that's going to go in there, I need to make sure that it does have a little bit of room, and I don't want to use too much adhesive because I need to make sure that I have room for my tag to slide in. So I'm going to actually place my tag in there to make sure that it fits, and there is room in there for this to come in and out of that pocket. Now this other piece over here, so this one I'm going to flip over to the back side. It's 1 1/4 inches, and I've cut this to 4.5 inches, and it is going to go here on the front of this little tiny flap here. Then I'm going to cut one more piece from this paper, and it measures 4 inches by 4 inches, and I'm going to be using the back side of this paper, but I'm going to set this aside for now. I'm going to adhere all of these on, and then we're going to come back and start cutting some additional papers. Now from this 12 by 12 paper here, I've cut one piece to 3 by 4 1/4. Then I've cut one piece to 4 by 4. Then I've cut this piece to 2 1/4 by 4.5. So 2 1/4 by 4.5, and I've cut just a little tiny bit off the end here. Now these pieces, this one I'm going to place here on the inside of the upper flap. Then I'm going to take my smaller one and place it here. Just like with this pocket here, once this paper's on, I'm going to apply my adhesive and close this to form a pocket. And then this one is going to go here on the bottom portion of this flap. And then this piece that we cut previously is going to go down here on the underside of, or the inside of that lower flap. Next, from this 12 by 12 paper here, this is what it looks on the back side. I've cut one piece that measures 4 1/4 by 5 inches. This next piece measures 3 inches by 3 3/4. And then this piece measures 4 1/2 by 3 1/2. I'm going to open this flap here. Now this piece here is going to go on that back side. This piece I'm going to set aside for now, and this piece is going to go here on this flap. I'm going to adhere these two pieces down, and then I'm going to come back and add a few additional elements. Now I have all of my flaps covered. I'm going to go ahead and close this up. This piece here, I'm going to make a photo mat. So I have a piece of cardstock, 3 1/4 by 4. Now I'm using that leftover piece that was cut from the front of this paper. It was this piece here. It was the end portion of that. So I just made my photo mat that same exact size. So I'm going to be placing this piece on the back side of my photo mat. And then I've cut this piece, remember, and it's going to go here on the front side. And then once I have this finished, I can go ahead and place this in here in this little pocket. Then from my cut apart sheets, from these two cut apart sheets, I have cut the two pieces here, and this one I'm actually going to place down as a tuck spot for this as like a little journaling card. So I'm going to apply just a little tiny bit of adhesive to the bottom section and the sides, and place this right here on my paper. And then tuck my little tag right down inside of it. Now the last thing I need to do is cover my tag. So I do have my Graphic 45 tag die that I'm going to be using from both of these papers that we've been using already. I've just cut two pieces that measure 4 3/4 by 5 1/4, and I'm going to just use my decorative die here on each of these pieces. This black paper I'm going to place on the front side, and the red paper I'm going to place on the back side. Here is my tag with the paper on. So the magnet is completely covered, and underneath here, I did take a 4-inch piece of my Graphic 45 ribbon. I just knotted it once, cut the ends at an angle, and have it out the top. Now, if you want to have a bow or larger piece here, obviously you can cut it larger if you want to tie this multiple times, but I don't want mine to be too bulky. If you were going to place photos on both sides of your tag, you don't have to add any additional elements, but I am going to add one of the fussy cut pieces. I've got the clock one here. Now I cut the clock thinking that I was going to use it on the front of my tag, but I just realized in looking at this is the opposite of how it's supposed to be. So I think that's a misprint in the paper because it's backwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 instead of it being over here. So I am not going to use that piece because that will drive me crazy. I'm going to find another piece and add to the center of here. And I think I already have one cut that will work because this has those. I cut this out thinking I was going to use it here, but I decided to use the other one. I'm going to place this image on the front of my tag. Not sure about that clock, if that was intentional or if they mirrored that design accidentally, but I'm not using that piece. So I'm going to just go ahead and place this here in the center of my tag for some decoration. Don't mind the little thumps. My puppy just brought a ball because she wants to play. So once my tag is finished, I can go ahead and place it into my pocket here. And then I will close my page. So that is all for this part of the tutorial. Once we have all of our pages finished and in the album, I will come back and add some additional elements, some decorative pieces, some of the pearls, some chipboard, some flowers, that sort of thing on top of my page to give it some extra decoration. But I like to do that once everything is done so I know how much room I have left in my album. In the next tutorial video, we will start on the back side of page 1. So I will see you in the next tutorial.